Broadcasting from the KMF Collective Studio, it's time for the Athletes of the Titan Games podcast. This limited release show features the stories of the 2020 contestants of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's athletic competition, NBC's The Titan Games. Now, here's your host, Katie Galley.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 6 of the Athletes of the Titan Games podcast. I'm your host, Katie Galley. In the KMF Collective Studio with me today, I have Titan Games athlete, fitness enthusiast, and a homeschool mom of 4, Jess Weatherby. How are you doing, Jess?
I'm doing well. How are you guys? How are you, Katie?
I am doing awesome. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your story with us today.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do it and excited to be a part of it.
Well, thank you. I'm excited too, Jess, to dive into your story. And so just to kind of get to know a little bit of background on you to start, I wonder, where did you grow up and how, if at all, was your childhood shaped by athletics?
I grew up in South Texas, a little town south of San Antonio, about 30 miles, and my life wasn't shaped by athletics. I was always a sports fan. I really loved 90s basketball, big 90s NBA fan, but as for me, I actually never played a single sport ever in my life.
Wow. And it's amazing, though, that later in life now you have become such a fitness enthusiast and loving it and having it shape your life. And so then, Jess, when did fitness then become a part of your life?
It became a part of my life when I woke up one morning and I literally could not get out of bed. So as a mom, you're used to working through things, working through pain, carrying kids around when you're tired, your back hurts, been through labor without any kind of pain medicine. But I woke up one morning and the pain was so excruciating and my muscles had completely frozen and I literally could not roll out of bed. Actually would have to have my husband carry me to the bathroom. It was so bad. And so at that point, I obviously had to go find out what was going wrong. I had lived most of my life with lower back pain. I was one of those scoliosis kids. And growing up, we could never really afford to do much about that. So I had just gotten used to living with a lot of lower back pain, hip pain, things like that. But this was obviously off the charts. And that was the thing that kind of pushed me into fitness, which is a long story in and of itself.
Yeah. And so just what ended up happening? What was causing all that pain and what prompted you, I guess, on the back end? Then how did fitness become a part of the recovery process?
Well, the cause of the pain was a number of things. So I was born with deformed hip sockets, which were extremely shallow, and my femoral heads, which are the top of your thigh bone, were also misshapen. And because of that, to compensate, my body had grown bone spurs that had kind of encapsulated my femurs and limited my range of motion quite a bit. I had some fusion in the vertebrae of my lower back, and also had some bone fragments that had broken loose off of those spurs that had become embedded in my labrums in either side of my hip, which is your cartilage that cushions that joint. And I also had have bilateral labral tears. So the cartilage in that joint was torn and kind of coming apart. So the official diagnosis is Kamen-Pincher hip impingement with bilateral labral tears. And ended up going to 3 different orthos, was told the same thing, that I needed immediate surgery to correct some of the issues, and that I basically was staring down a prognosis of needing a full hip replacement by age 45, which when you're a mom and you're a stay-at-home mom like I am, homeschool mom, we have livestock, that was just something that did not fit into our lifestyle. I didn't have 9 to 12 months to go through that surgery, be on crutches, and then an additional year to go through a rehab, all for the sake of repeating that process only on a more extreme level with a hip replacement just a few years after. So I after the initial shock, which was obviously super scary and frustrating, I decided that I'd live with these hips for 39 years. And although they were giving me trouble, I felt like maybe there was a different way. So I researched the surgery, was very unhappy with the quality of life that people were experiencing post-surgery. It seemed to me, from what I was reading and understanding, that they weren't feeling any better. They weren't functioning any better. And so I did a bunch of research, got really familiar with my own anatomy and what was causing my problems, and kind of developed my own rehabilitation plan. And the goal there was rebuilding my posterior chain, because I felt like, although I'm limited a little bit by what I was born with, there was a lot that I felt I could do to strengthen the muscles that surrounded my hips and give them the support that they needed, and maybe avoid surgery. And so that's what I set out to do. And I did that for about 9 months. I work out at home now and do all of my own fitness programming now. But I did, after that 9 months, join a gym with a boot camp program for a while, and jumped into that. And within about 4 weeks, I was probably the most athletic female in the gym, and started lifting shortly thereafter.
Man, I mean, it's such an incredible journey. I mean, one, to come from debilitating pain, and then you don't, the option to get surgery, that was not something you were going to pursue. So learning how to manage it then through fitness and working out. And that's amazing, Jess. So for you, on the day when you woke up and you were just in that excruciating pain, was it just something you said, born with those hip sockets, so that all of a sudden it just started to give you pain? Or was it over time, it started to build, and then it got to a point where it was just so painful you had to do something about it?
Yeah, I had experienced pain my whole life. They were never right. There were definitely times where I would, try to pop in a workout DVD and give that a shot, and I would end up, after a couple of days of just trying that out, crawling around, and that's not an exaggeration, literally crawling across my floor trying to take care of my kids.
Wow.
So, it was something that I knew I could never, prior to becoming familiar with what was going on anatomically, fitness, exercise, things like that were absolutely never an option for me unless I wanted to find myself on the floor. What had happened that day is that I had just stressed my hips to the point where my muscles had just tried so hard to super compensate for what was going on, that they had frozen. And it was the small muscles that make up the core and the posterior chain. So your little hip flexors, your IT band, things like that, because I had been moving with a range of motion and in a pattern for so long, compensating for the anatomical defects, that my glutes, my hamstrings, that whole posterior chain just was not firing at all. And so it was all these little muscles trying their best to support this crazy stuff with my hips. And they just, I mean, essentially it's like they froze and gave up and said no more one day.
Wow.
So yeah, that was the root of the pain there. So
Wow. That's insane that it got to that point. But then, too, you just, on the back end, deciding, okay, I'm going to figure out how to push past this. So the thing that caused you, or you believed was causing you the most pain in working out, was actually the thing that ended up helping you the most then, when you learned how to, what you needed to do. And so, Jess, then you said you started to develop eventually your own workout plans and workout regimens. So is that something you still do today? And do you put it out there to help other people who have struggled with the same issues that you do?
I do. Yeah, I continue to do my own programming. A lot of people who are interested, I put it out from time to time on Instagram. I'll put out what I did for the day and what my workouts look like. I definitely don't always encourage them to be used by everybody, because sometimes for me, it's, there's just this mindset of, I have seen the amazing things that a little bit of determination and willpower and desire to push through the pain, learn about your body, figure out what works best for you. I've seen what that can accomplish. So, a lot of the stuff that I do, I don't always necessarily recommend that everybody tries it, because it seems a little bit crazy. But I do periodically I will reshare my story and put information out there as I, get more followers and become friends with a larger number of people so that they can see what I have been through for the sake of, never give up, never feel so hopeless and so lost in a diagnosis that you give up on yourself. And I think that's truly important, and that's a large part of my mission with becoming a part of Titan Games is just to send the message out there for people that have given up on themselves to keep pushing forward.
I love that. It's using the platform that you already have, but then pursuing even further, having the chance to be on the Titan Games, and then just promoting that platform even further to help others in response with that. And so, Jess, then, how did the opportunity arise for you to become a contestant on this season of the Titan Games?
Well, it was interesting. So when I initially got on social media on Instagram, I did it like every good mom to keep track of my teenage kids. And I ended up having a really crazy accident in which I tore. It really wasn't fitness related at all, but I ended up tearing my ACL, MCL, LCL, and I still have a massive bucket handle meniscus tear. And at that point, I kind of started using Instagram as therapy and putting my rehab out there. And it was an accountability process because when you're working out at home, it's really easy to phone it in, to not get back out there and do what you need to do and get lost in your frustration and your pain. And because I'd been through what I went through with my hips, I basically did the same thing with my knee. I learned about, healing and cytokines and synovial fluid and inflammation and how to make that process work towards healing for me. And so I started putting some information out on the internet, and when I had sufficiently, I guess, come through in my recovery and was, doing some crazy stuff, pulling trucks down the road and, doing these 600-pound hip thrusts and things like that. I had a number of people take notice, and I had a good friend who also runs obstacle course races. Kept bugging me about trying to get involved and submit my story to Titan Games. And I ignored it at first because I'm not a Hollywood kind of person. But he was very persistent and actually sent me the application. So I filled it out, and actually very close to the same point in time that I did that, I had one of the production assistants contact me based on what they saw on Instagram as well. So, I had both of those things come together in a perfect storm and just felt like, okay, this is the message I'm getting. I'm going to go for it. So, I made the video, submitted it, and I guess the rest is history.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. It's having those doors open for you, but then you choosing to walk through them, realizing, okay, there's a reason this is happening. I'm going to explore this and see what happens. And so, Jess, it is interesting, though, because, of course, you started this whole fitness journey that eventually, of course, led you to the Titan Games, but it started as rehabilitation and how am I going to be able to move and help my kids. And then now, like you said, it's come to pushing and pulling and thrusting an insane amount of weight. So that's, you, of course, a little bit further along than just a regular fitness regimen. So how did you get involved with lifting such heavy things and obstacle course racing? How did you take your fitness journey and amplify it to that level?
That was obstacle course racing was actually the thing that got me interested in lifting. I think initially when I got into fitness, aside from things going on with my hip, it's this typical, okay, I'm approaching 40 years old. Who doesn't want to lose 10 pounds? And I really didn't have a motivation beyond that, but I had seen stuff about obstacle course racing. I'm kind of a gritty, dirty kind of person. And so it was appealing from that standpoint. And when I looked into what it took, I felt like, okay, cardio wise, I may be able to keep up, but I probably have a little bit of work to do with strength. So at that point, I started lifting, and it just came in like gangbusters for me. The little gym that I worked out in, I wasn't there for a very long time, but they catered towards the local university's athletic programs. So we had a lot of really top-notch collegiate athletes that I was working out with. And before my first cycle of strength training was completed, I was the heaviest female lifter in the gym, and
Wow.
that was including, these Division I collegiate athletes. So I felt like, gosh, I'm 39 years old, and I'm jumping into this thing feet first, and discovering that, there's a gift there. And I think what motivated me most in that was just being able to do that. So many times people take their mobility for granted, and having woken up one morning and not being able to move, I knew what that was like. So every pound that I pushed, every PR that I smashed, it was just more of a motivation for me to, keep progressing forward. And it was out of extreme gratitude and humility and thankfulness for what my body was able to achieve. And so from there, you just start dreaming big. You think, okay, I've done this thing. Um, I'm going to try my hand at, you know, pulling some crazy weight or dragging a truck down the road, whatever it was. And, to me, it's just a celebration of, um, the human potential, human will, the blessings of a healthy body. And I wake up every morning and I'm just grateful that I can do the things I do.
Mm-hmm. Truly, I mean, it's coming from a place of I never want to be in that place again. I never want to be in that much pain, and then it grows. It clearly grew to become okay. I never want to be in that place again, but I want to see what more I can do. What limits can I push my body past now? Because you were, I guess, thinking back, it must be you were in this place of how am I ever going to get out of this, and now you're in place with how can I keep crushing these goals and these smashing these PRs that I keep setting for myself.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it.
And that's such an incredible perspective because it could be easy to be driven, I'm sure, by the fear of it. But you're driven. Imagine, of course, it was still a very scary thing to have happen, but that's no longer the driving force. It's you're going to be this for your kids, and you're going to push yourself and see the limits that you can then surpass.
That's so true. Yeah, I mean the injuries and the lifelong of pain. I mean that was the catalyst. That was the catalyst that pushed me into all of this. And now, what you're saying is exactly correct. My motivation is, being a light to other people, sharing my story with other people, encouraging, my kids and anyone who hears, a little bit of what I've been through to think big and dig deep and really discover what potential is hiding under your pain.
Wow, that's so beautifully said. The potential that's hiding under your pain and pushing past that. And so now, just for you, having this incredible experience going on the Titan Games, I wonder. I just think this is kind of a fun question to ask. Of course, the Titan Games were created by The Rock, who is so many tenets that you're speaking about in your own story. Those perseverance, pushing past the fear. I wonder if do you remember maybe the first time that you became aware of The Rock and maybe why he inspired you or why you were inspired to continue on to try out for the Titan Games?
I think the first time I became aware of The Rock, I think it was, I didn't always watch wrestling. I did when I was younger, but I'm about The Rock's age. And so the guys that I were watching weren't him. They were older than him. So I became aware of him, I think, when his movie career got big. And then you look into his story, and I've read, a lot of articles and some biographical information and seen, how he has transformed himself from, I think he had some struggles and insecurities as a young person, got involved in some things that maybe he shouldn't have. And obviously someone in America, being our age, having a different look, a different nationality, a different background, it's never easy to break into a scene in which you have to break out of a mold. And so, yeah, he's definitely very inspirational. He's done, everything that he touches, he does extremely well at. And that's not because he was handed something or gifted something. That's because he thinks big, he dreams big, he pushes hard, and he backs it up with hard work, which is really what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. Yep, You're 100% right. And that's clearly the way that you lead your life. I mean, you push past these incredible barriers because you're seeking and pursuing that success and wanting to be better than you were yesterday. And so just in light of that, coming off of this experience and of course, reflecting on your own journey, the obstacles that you've overcome, I wonder, what would you say is your definition of a Titan?
My definition of a Titan is an overcomer. The people that I got to know and the Titan family that we are now, every single person has a story. Every single person has a journey. And there are some really big name, incredible athletes. And you hear about a heptathlete, a CrossFit Games champ, people like that. I never knew a lot of the personal struggles and battles and things that they have overcome. And, you look at these world-class athletes, and in my mind, I think, you had everything going right for you. You've got world-class trainers and you've had all these opportunities, these things that other people may not have had. And that's just the complete opposite from what I've learned. These are everyday people who have pushed through some insane obstacles and have, through their own grit and determination and just sheer force of will, overcome everything that has been put in their path. And so I think the definition of a Titan, hands down, especially our season 2 squad, is an overcomer.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It captures everything. And like you said, it's everybody has their own story that they come in with. And no matter what background they come from or what they've gone through in their own life, they've overcome something to be there, to stand on that stage with you. Everyone has their own baggage that they come in with. And it's just how they overcame it and successfully got to where they are today.
Absolutely. And I think their baggage, again, they're having that baggage, having that heavy stone that holds you back, and then, obtaining the strength to persevere with that baggage. That is the thing that made them stronger. That is the thing that ends up setting them apart. And it's what you do with those heavy burdens. Do you build your strength? Do you build your story with those heavy burdens and move forward, or do you let them hold you back? And I think every person on this season has used those obstacles to make themselves stronger, and that's what sets them apart.
Absolutely. Like you said, I love that. It's what you do with that heavy burden. It's either going to propel you forward or hold you back, and you get to determine how you're going to let that shape your story. And so Jess,
absolutely.
Yeah. And so for you, I mean, clearly, and that is a theme in your own story, your own journey, everything you've overcome and accomplished to date, and knowing that there's still so much left, you're still going to accomplish all of the goals that you set for yourself and everything you set your eyes on. And with that in mind, Jess, I just have one final question that I ask all of my interviewees. What do you want to be remembered for?
Gosh, what do I want to be remembered for? I guess I want to be remembered for, what I have overcome. I was the second oldest. There was another gentleman on the show who I'm fixing to turn 42. He actually turned 42 while we were there. So we were the oldest competitors. To dial that back a little bit, I think I want to be remembered for the fact that this was not my lifestyle for most of my life, that this was a new thing for me, that this was something that was supposed to be impossible for me. The orthopedic surgeons all told me that I would and could never run, that I would and could never lift weights, that I should never even do anything easy like yoga and Pilates. Essentially, I was told by 3 medical professionals to sit down and let my life slip away. And I want to be known for refusing that and for choosing my own path, I think, more than anything.
Thank you all for tuning in to today's installment of the Athletes of the Titan Games podcast. To learn more about each of these Titan athletes, be sure to check out their information in the links in my show notes. Furthermore, To stay up to date on all things coming out of the KMF Collective, be sure to subscribe to the Keep Moving Forward YouTube channel and follow along on social media, also available in the show notes. As the creator of the Titan games, Mr. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson says, "Titans aren't born, they're made." And I hope today's story helped you realize all that you are capable of becoming if you put in that hard work and just keep moving forward.